Welcome back. I'm going to be doing a comments video in this one, so I'm going to be reading out some of your comments because I thought they were very good, and yeah, I just thought I'd read some of them out, share them. But first of all, I just in relation to the previous video I did, where I was talking about my experiences with the PALS complaint, Patient Advice Liaison Service. Patient Advice Liaison Service, is it liaison or liaison? I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Liaison, I think I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. I always pronounce words wrong in the English language. Well, by the way, Welsh language, which I'm studying, is far more easy to pronounce in the English language because it has a very, very clear pronunciation. I don't even know how to word pronounce. Yeah, it's a very, very clear pronunciation system where once you know the rules in Welsh, I still get it. Sometimes I get it wrong. Like I mix up long vowels and short vowels sometimes because it's not always clear. Like when you're learning what is a long vowel and what is a short vowel, but I'm getting better at it. But with Welsh, it is basically a very, very clear system for pronouncing words. So once you know the rules, even if you haven't seen a word before, you sort of know more or less how to pronounce it, because you always put the stress on the penultimate syllable. But anyway, yeah, it's very clear in Welsh, and there aren't really any silent letters. There are a few exceptions, but more or less every single letter is pronounced, which is different to English. And I often just mispronounce words, so I'm not even sure. How do you pronounce liaison? Is it liaison or liaison? I don't know. So I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Let's say liaison now, because I think liaison is wrong, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it's the Patient Advice Liaison Service. And yeah, you contact them if you have a complaint, like an NHS complaint. And I do, because obviously I'm complaining about the lack of support for my OCD, the fact I've been denied therapy unless I take medication, when medication is not suitable for me, and I don't want to take medication, and I'm feeling that medication is kind of being, people are trying to put pressure on me to take medication, but I'm not taking medication, it's just not suitable for me, and I shouldn't be denied therapy. That's the context for that. Again, obviously, as I was saying in my previous video, I was put in contact with the clinic manager, who I spoke to the other day, because I'd emailed PALS, Patient Advice Liaison Service. I sent them an email, complaining about this lack of support. So they put me in contact with the clinic manager, and I spoke to them on Monday. And I was quite upset when they basically made that comment about some people being more severe than me. See my other video where I talked about that. Anyway, yeah, I just made some kind of notes about maybe like some responses to that comment, or just some kind of comebacks to that type of comment. And I actually I discovered that it's actually, there's a fallacy called the fallacy of relative privation, which is an informal fallacy. It's also known as it's also known as the worse than you fallacy, or that, this idea that there are always people worse off than you sort of thing, as a way of kind of like discounting your experience. So that's what it's called, the fallacy of relative privation. So I made some notes about this. So the first note is that we should be helping and supporting everyone, so that everyone can feel better, no matter what issues or support needs they might have. This bullshit of other people have it worse, so let's help nobody, just makes everyone worse off in the long run. Just because some people with OCD might be technically more severe than me, I mean, that's all relative, isn't it? That's why it's called relative privation fallacy, because that might be true, but that doesn't make my condition any less severe for me. But, if we go along with that, we say, well, okay, some people are more severe than me. I'm thinking maybe of someone who I don't know, like, I can still pursue my hobbies, you know what I mean? Like, I can read a book if I want to. It's difficult, I struggle, but I can. And I can do my hobbies, you know, some people with OCD are so severely impacted they can't do that, or they might not be able to do what I'm doing right now, they might not be able to do a video. Their whole life might be consumed with rituals, like they literally might not be able to be torn away from the sink. So yeah, you know, there are some people who are more severe than me, there are some people who are worse than me. Granted, I accept that. It doesn't actually make my condition any less severe for me. The fact is I'm housebound, it doesn't change the fact that I'm still severely impacted. I might not be as severe as them. There's always someone who's worse off than you, isn't there? Because ultimately we're all dead at the end, you know, that's the most severe outcome of all, isn't it? Death, you know. Even for those people who can't be torn away from the sink, you know, they're still better off than someone who's dead at that point in time, you know. So it's like, I also call it, by the way, the fallacy of infinite regress. That's just my name for it. I don't know if anyone else calls it that. But you could also call it the fallacy of infinite regress. There's always someone worse off than you. It's like an infinite thing, you know, this relative privation. So ultimately, you're regressing to the worst case, which is ultimately death. And when you look at it in that way, it just shows how absurd it is. You know, you take your fallacy to the extreme, you take the argument to the extreme, well then ultimately no one gets help, do they? Because there's always someone worse off than you, but it doesn't change the facts of your own difficulty. It just invalidates your own problem and is really quite offensive. So just because there are people technically who are worse off than me doesn't mean I don't need support too. It would be equivalent. I guess an equivalent example might be just because, you know, an equivalent example might be referring to, say, someone with a physical problem. Just because someone else might be in a full body cast, okay, doesn't mean, say if you have a broken arm, you've broken your arm, that doesn't mean that your broken arm doesn't need attention to. Like, imagine if you went to the hospital, you had a broken arm, you'd broken your arm, and they said, oh, sorry, we can't treat you, some people are worse off than you, some people are more severe than you, because, you know, at least you still have an arm, you know. I mean, how absurd would that be? Because, you know, that's ultimately what his argument is, isn't it? That's, you know, that is the same position, really, isn't it? It just shows how absurd. You sometimes have to do these philosophical thought experiments just to highlight how absurd this argument is. Now, I'm going to use these now. If someone ever says that to me, I'm going to make them think. I'm going to use these philosophical thought experiments to get them to think. I'm not just going to sit there and let them bullshit over me. I've got arguments here, man. Arguments. The other thing is that other people have different challenges than I do. It's different challenges, just different challenges. It doesn't invalidate my problem and it doesn't invalidate their problem. They're just different challenges. But that doesn't mean that what I'm going through right now is any less valid or real or any less deserving of support. It doesn't invalidate my challenges. It doesn't invalidate their challenges. Likewise, someone else might be technically less severe than me. And less severe, by the way, we're using this very objective, kind of impersonal, comparative, pure reason, I guess. It's pure reason, but it doesn't have any humanity to it, it doesn't have any feeling to it, it's impersonal, it might be correct on a very objective level, but that doesn't actually help anyone who's going through real existential problems. On a human level, it doesn't help anyone. You know, it basically objectifies you. So, you know, there might be someone on that very rational, impersonal, statistical, quantitative level. There might be someone who's less severe than me. You know, they might be able to go out to work. You know, they might have, be able to travel a little bit. But they might be going through shit of their own. You know, someone might say objectively they're less severe because, well, at least they're not housebound. But that's not going to help them, is it? They might equally be severe in a different way. And if someone were to kind of use me to weaponise my problems against them, I feel insulted as well. I feel insulted that my problems are being used to deny them support. It doesn't make any difference that, you know, they might on a very crude objective level be less severe because, oh well, they can go to work, they can leave the house. That doesn't make their problems any less severe. And equally, just because someone else might be chained to the sink all day washing their hands and technically have more severe OCD than me on a very objective level, doesn't make the fact I'm housebound any easier to bear. It doesn't make my problem any less severe for me. So it's actually futile comparing people, comparing human beings to one another. Because you can't rank struggles in that very crude, rationalistic way, that utilitarian way. It's offensive when it comes to people. It's a very capitalist thing, isn't it? Ranking. And the other point I want to make is, well, yes, other people are more severe than me, technically, on that objective, rational level. And yet also, other people have it better than me as well. You can look at it both ways. Well, yeah, someone might be more severe than me, but equally, someone might be better than me as well. I could also be better off, couldn't I? You know, why should I accept having to be left housebound without support? Why is that good enough? Because I could actually be doing better. I could be like, you know, I might not ever be able to hold down a job. I don't think that's realistic for me with my problems unless someone could wave a miracle cure. But I might be able to, you know, go out and do volunteering like I used to do. I used to do lots of volunteering. You know, I might actually be able to have, you know, I might be able to leave the house and do things like that. I could actually be doing better than I'm doing. So is it acceptable that I'm just left without support because some people are more severe than you? A good analogy, by the way, another one to use is, it doesn't matter if you're drowning in a pool or an ocean. You're still drowning. So that's a good one to get people to think, I think. It's a good philosophical thought experiment. Invalidating me won't make my problems go away. Comparing my severity to other people's isn't making things any better for me. I know other people have their own problems. And I know that other people might be more severe than me. Some people can't talk. At least I can talk, right? It doesn't make me, just knowing that fact doesn't make me think, oh, I'm so happy, I'm so lucky. At least my autism means I can, you know, I'm not as severe as that person over there who can't talk and needs someone around them all the time and is constantly banging their head against a wall. Yes, they might be more severe than me on that very crude, rationalistic level. You know, and I'm glad I'm not like that. I'm glad, but at the same time, that doesn't make my own challenges any less severe for me. And it doesn't mean that just because there is someone more severe than me like that, that doesn't mean that shouldn't be weaponised against my need for support. Just, as I said, just in the same way that just because I might technically be more severe than someone else who can go out and go to work doesn't make their problems any less severe for them or any less deserving of support either. We're all different. We all have different challenges and we all have needs. And those needs shouldn't be discounted just because someone else, and on a very objective level, might be in a worse situation. It doesn't make someone else's problems any easier to bear. Okay. You know, so when I say I have severe problems, I don't want someone else to come along and say, well, I know someone who's more severe than you, because that was a really offensive comment to make, and it's completely beside the point. Okay, so I've got a lot to say here, and I will be getting onto your own comments in a moment. I'm going to move over to video number 2 now, so I could just carry on going over these and also going over your comments as well. So, moving over to video number 2 now.